And what do you do, Ingbar?
So I'm working on a decentralized journalism platform. So specifically to allow for dialogue in conflict zones where it's a lot harder to be able to talk to someone who's your political enemy and there's a lot of barriers involved. So have a very to have a platform with a secure place for people to share their
So what
stories.
would be an example of where someone would use this?
So I'm from Israel, originally, and so that's like the perfect breeding ground for this kind of application. I've been in touch with both Israeli and Palestinian activists who were very enriched from the encounter of speaking to someone on the other side, to find out things that they couldn't have found out from just watching the news or reading the news and the mainstream media, which tends to have a bit more of a political bias when presenting the other side.
So do they speak through video, audio, text?
So, well, the project I'm working on would be video chats. The interactions that exist today exist in all types of forms. So there are Palestinians who can leave the territories and have all sorts of conversations with Israelis, and often this is a very enriching
So
experience.
it's kind of like chat roulette, but a Palestinian would always get an Israeli, and an Israeli
I
would
mean,
always
we
get
could
a
we could work on those
Palestinian.
settings. I feel like that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but the idea is also to avoid the kind of tendency of social media to just push what you already know and what you already like into your face, but actually also have the other kind of perspectives in there and have maybe chat roulette where you're more likely to talk to someone that has views completely different from your own.
You see, and that is so fundamentally important to collect your information from a vast eclectic array of sources, right? You don't just want to hear the same information over and over and over again, because then you do not have a reference point if that information is true or not, right? So how do you, well, specifically then make sure that there are actually different opinions getting together? How is the selection process?
Um, so I guess the easiest
And
way
be
is to
sure to speak up nice and loud and keep it close. Yeah.
all right. So I guess the best way is to allow people to identify themselves in a certain way, be that language, religion, place of location of residence, or political views, and so on. So that's the one of the ways to make sure that you're always, in conversation with someone different, and to have representation from minorities, representation from genders and so on to make sure there is representation and voices coming into the conversation.
Do you think it's like so? For example, on Twitter, the people you can block people for, and which is good in some respects, but it does create a bit of an echo chamber. And I think that there's I actually like to do when I read about news. I actually love reading about the opposite. I love reading the opposite opinion, like and seeing how there are why their arguments are rather than and having that variance rather than just sort of reading what kind of confirms what I would like to believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, especially conflict zones are very complex realities and people experience them differently. So that means that there is no one ultimate truth, but actually the truth comes with all the different perspectives to create a much fuller picture of what's going on. And people who want to tune into that should be given the possibility to do so.
Now, a lot of people find the internet dehumanizing. When you go on Twitter, it's really easy to scream at an avatar, or type some nasty all caps words. By adding in the video chat, does that decrease that? Do people see a face and get less upset, or do you still have upset problems?
I mean, I guess it's personal, each to their own. So I don't know. I feel like having the video and the face there can be more humanizing, just because you're seeing the person and maybe you can see his facial expression and physical responses to the conversations. And um, in many cultures, people can be very expressive, and just having that image there is helpful.
And of course, when talking in such conflict zones, oftentimes privacy is a big issue. So how do you take care of the encryption of such conversations so that they are private?
Yeah, so it's highly important to make sure that people feel safe and to ensure freedom of speech and anti-censorship in these kind of very politically sensitive spaces. So Amin was just in here, and perhaps he mentioned he was working on a project called 1M5. So that is exactly the project I'm working on called Salam Talk is exactly the perfect application for this kind of protocol, because we want to make sure that the data doesn't end up in the hands of government servers, of central servers, So to make sure that it is fully decentralized and there's no central authority that can come in and grab the information that they might need, is of high importance. So using that kind of protocol is what I'm hoping will really ensure that people can have safe conversations.
So what are you missing right now to take this project to the next level?
Money.
Oh, well,
good old,
everyone
good old
has
cash.
everyone has deep pockets here. I know if you put up a QR code, you'll get no donations at all. But what's the plan? How are you going to raise the money? Altcoin?
No, okay, but before just it's
Sure,
not
sure.
just money, but I
Okay.
mean there's still a lot of concepts that need to be fully explored. How do you create a verification system to make sure that the quality of information is high? Is having a reputation and review system enough to make sure that quality remains high? Because I mean it works quite well on Airbnb. You know, if you stay in a place you didn't like and you leave a bad review, the next person probably not gonna, you know, he's gonna think twice before he books the place.
Sure.
So if you apply that to human interactions, would that be sufficient to ensure that there's high quality of information going around? Or, you know, perhaps in conflict zones it's a bit more complicated because people have different agendas and they're very emotionally involved, and then you know maybe they just want to shit on the other posts because it's you know. So that is something that I'm trying to figure out now as well.
And what's interesting actually is that in journalism, there's no kind of like we're talking about the Airbnb, the reviews, and the having the reputation. There's no like. It would be great if there were stats on on how accurate information is, and so that you knew particular sources that you could should avoid.
Yeah, so well, maybe AI needs to come into that.
Hmm.
I don't know. So it gets more and more complicated the more we talk about it. But that's the thing with, because if we want to have a decentralized platform, that means that the body of some journalistic body that usually would be there to verify and fact check and all that, that is kind of taken out. Um, you know, for the sake of having a peer-to-peer network that is organic and grows and in its own natural way. So there's a risk of that becoming a troll, you know, breeding ground. So how do we avoid that? That's something I'm trying to find out the answers to. So
Definitely captchas. It's all about captchas. Yeah.
it's all about what?
Those little things where you type in the words and you can't read them.
Yeah.
Captions.
That proves you're a human. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
need
well,
that,
I'm
yeah.
getting more robotic as the days go by because
I find
some
them
of
more and
them
more
like
difficult.
yeah.
Mhm.
You're
Crazy.
too
You got to
old,
pick the
man.
traffic lights and then the buses and the.
But you see, all these captures are actually used as training data for artificial
are.
Yeah, that's
intelligence.
fascinating.
So
yeah.
actually, we humans now provide the training data
Yeah.
for the robots that proves that we are human. But what if we teach the robots good enough, and then they can do the human tests better than we do?
Well, there was
We can have some time off.
there was a test. I think not a test, uh, quiz questionnaire. However, but it was whatever it is. What it's for is for self-driving cars. You would have to make decisions on who to kill. It's like the train track thing, and and so it would say like a businessman is walking across the roads illegally or something like and then but there's a pregnant lady who's and it's literally you have to choose which one, and it's a scary sort of thought that that's what that someone's going to have to make a decision on actually, and they're sort of crowdsourcing whose life is more important.
Well, the real problem there is if you buy a car that's designed to kill you. If there's a crowd of school children, you could save the children
Yes,
by crashing the car into the wall, killing the owner of the car.
Yeah.
Who would buy that car?
Yeah.
I want the car that runs over the school children to save my life, right? At least that's the decision I would make in the auto showroom or whatever. But I feel bad later.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you sure you want to configure
I
it
didn't
that
think
way?
that would happen. I think I didn't, but it did. But yeah, that's the big problem there. That's both a legal and moral, ethical problem.
Yeah.
I think we've drifted a little off
yeah,
the
sorry.
application there, though. But
I mean, car crashes are quite, relevant issue worldwide. So
Yeah,
there you go.
we'll be better off with self-driving cars. Human-driven cars are incredibly unsafe. We just can't.
It's coming
gauge
soon,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah, sooner than you think.
2 weeks.
Maybe I won't need to do my driving license after all. So I'm just waiting for that.
Just keep putting it off. You don't need to do it. So where can people learn more about your project?
So salamtalk.org is the website, and We have a Facebook group, Salam Talk app, so you can find us there. You can contact me in Barrio on Twitter. Salam Talk is kind of, yeah, we're getting Twitter, so you can find Salam Talk on Twitter too.
All right, Twitter.
So yeah, thanks guys, and all the best. Enjoy the conference last day. So hope it's fun.
All right.
All
Thanks
right,
so
cheers
much.
guys. See you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
And that was fun.